Good morning, everyone. I want to do a quick video answering the question about whether or not you should run one of these split rings to connect your planer board release to the arm. Most planer boards out there use them for your rear clip, but what about the front clip? Well, basically I'll say I've tried it both ways, and I think there's a pro and a con to each way of running your boards this way. Let me start with running with the clip, which I think I see more people running with the clip than without. And the biggest advantage to this, from what I can tell and listening to people on forums, etc., is that when your front clip has a split ring there in between it and the arm, it gives it way more articulation, almost like suspension. In the same way that this rear clip can go up and down with the waves and fish or whatever, having a split ring on here allows it to do the same. And the people who benefit the most from this, from what I can tell, are those who are trolling on bigger waters with bigger waves, say on the Great Lakes or something like that, because you can imagine it as the boat and the motor, or the boat and the planer board, are going up and down over waves. Having that clip that's able to kind of go down and articulate may actually do a better job of keeping your planer board in contact with the fishing rod that's pulling it. So that's the biggest advantage. The biggest disadvantage that I've found is that when you run the clips, if here's your planer board, and let's say that this white bottle is your boat, when you run the clips, the planer boards tend to run further behind the boat and a little closer to the boat when you let more line out. And so some people may not mind that at all. In fact, some people may even prefer that for a more stealthy approach. Me personally, trolling more, reservoirs in Tennessee and things like that, I prefer my boards to be a little more in line with the boat and a little more in contact with it, a shorter line there. So that's probably the biggest advantage to not running the split ring that I just stated. And I'll say probably the biggest disadvantage to that is, I'm going to zoom in here, the way these pro releases are, the force, coming this way is what's going to trip the board. But intuitively, think in terms of physics for a minute. There's a point at which the angle as it comes this way, it's not going to open the clip, it's just going to pull on the board. And I think it's somewhere around 45 that it's over center. So I'm pulling pretty hard on that board and it's not opening. But now watch as I come this way, it'll pull pretty easily. So that can be an issue on these boards where if you're trolling along and you get a fish and it kind of pulls it back, there is a point at which you're not going to be able to trip that board, because it's just too far behind the boat. So it's got to be out here to trip it, where if this were on a clip and now it can pivot towards the boat, in theory, the board can still be this way. And since the clip is going to pivot towards the boat, in theory, you're always going to have a nice 90-degree pull off of the clip. So that might be the main reason why most people run it with the split ring. And I think I may have said clip instead of split ring. And forgive me, as you listen, just go back and insert split ring to any time I said clip for release. So my bad about that. Anyway, in conclusion, running with the clip, the advantage is it gives you better articulation in the waves. And possibly, maybe this is two advantages now, that you've always got that nice 90-degree pull when it comes time to trip the board, even if you're more behind the boat. But the disadvantage is that the boards tend to run back further behind the boat and a little tighter to the boat. Whereas when you do a rigid setup like me, they're a little more out next to the boat and running a little bit wider. And you got a good clean trip as long as it's out there. But if it falls too far behind the boat, you might get into trouble. All right, hopefully that helps some people who are wondering about the difference between running the split ring behind or in between your board and not. People may have more expertise about this, so please start a conversation in the comments if you agree, disagree, or have anything to add. Thanks a lot, everybody.